Hello, listeners. I'm Scott Lynch, author of The Lies of Locke Lamora and the other books in the Gentleman Bastard sequence, and you're listening to the Legendarium Podcast.
The Legendarium Podcast is brought to you
by you. So please visit patreon.com/legendarium
to support the show. But for now,
welcome to the Legendarium.
I've told you my pirate dating app idea, right?
I think you have.
Yeah, hookup. And the slogan is just going to be like, "You're here for the booty."
I hate you so much. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Legendarium Podcast. I am Craig Hanks, your host, and over there, he's so sour, if you lick him, it staves off scurvy. It's Kyle Lemon.
Wow, you pulled out a sour joke for Lemon. Like,
actually, I was thinking,
I'm really disappointed in you. Actually,
look. It fell into my lap. It was one of those things where we're doing a pirate book. I was going for pirate jokes, and then I was like, "Holy shit, scurvy! I can do a scurvy joke." Anyway, so yes, I did, and I'm not sorry.
Well, the listeners are.
And I would keel haul him, but frankly, his keel is too big for me to haul. It's Ryan Bruckman.
Okay.
Yeah. just sit back and take it. All right. So
don't give me barnacles.
Today we are talking Red Seas Under Red Skies. This is Gentleman Bastards number 2. So general spoiler alert for that. If you haven't read the book, don't listen to the episode unless you don't care about spoilers, in which case you're a monster, like Kyle.
Yep.
Anyway, so that's what we're doing today. Welcome, everybody. And before we do that, make sure you go to patreon.com/legendarium to support the show. Go to thelegendarium.reddit.com to join in the conversation. The Reddit threads there are delightful and thriving. 30, flirty, and thriving, I think, is the phrase that I remember from my teenage years. So I'm really going cross-genre here today. All right. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I will say this: we just had our family photo shoot here for the Legendarium, and so we'll be putting up some fun photos from that one. It was disturbing, to say the least.
Yeah, we could just start the awkward family photos chapter of podcasts.
Oh yeah. I think this is a good idea.
In fact, I feel like the listeners should send in their awkward family photos as well.
Ooh. Oh, can we do would that be a Reddit thread or maybe like a Twitter thread? Awkward family photos.
Yeah.
Either way, we need this to happen. I think this is a fantastic idea. We'll need our one to start that off. And then I think that should be a thing. So watch out for that, I guess. If you're not following us on Twitter, you should. I'm trying to get a little bit more active there, but really I don't know how to use Twitter, so watch me flail.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Is that like a whip and a nay-nay? Like, watch me flail?
Sure.
What? Okay, never mind.
Can I tell you the hardest thing about Twitter is, so I have my personal account that I never, ever, ever use, and I have the podcast account that I always stay logged into. And it's hard for me to remember that I'm on the podcast account because basically everything on Twitter is political. And so I'm constantly just like wanting to respond to some dumbass thing somebody said on Twitter. But I have to stop myself and just let it go because of the account I'm logged into. And honestly, I should anyway. I should have the self-control to just let things go. But it's hard. It's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ryan, you're pretty active on Twitter. People should follow you at
Ryan Bruckman.
Well, it's very complicated.
I will tell you, I kind of broke my a few years ago, I broke my social media into like different categories, and Twitter was more my soccer side where I focused on that, but occasionally I do tweet about
But I'm guessing if some listener followed you and tweeted at you, you would tweet back.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So maybe not even about soccer. Anyway, we should probably talk about Red Seas Under Red Skies. Like I said, this is Gentleman Bastards number 2. And I hope you guys enjoyed the Scott Lynch intro at the top of the episode.
Yeah.
Very grateful that he sent that in. Anyway, here's the thing. We don't have a Ken recap like we sometimes do for these. So I think we're going to have to do a team recap, an unprepared team recap.
This is already set up to be amazing.
This is going to be 5 minutes of the worst audio you've ever heard. So thumb on that 30-second forward button. Here we go. Ryan, start us off. First sentence, what are we doing in Red Seas?
We find our intrepid heroes.
I feel like I should call it already for you.
They are now working a casino, right?
Yeah, because it wasn't oceans enough, right?
Yeah. They're now working a casino, and they get brought into the two major power factions. There's this the job they're trying to pull off, and then they get pulled into the political side of things. And because they get pulled into the political side of things, they get sent off to be pirates.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah, they're working a casino job.
Mm-hmm.
They run afoul of the local authorities, the military authority.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you said, they go off to be pirates. That lasts 5 minutes. And then they become prisoners. Then they become prisoner pirates.
Okay.
And then they kill some people. And then the book ends.
Yeah.
What am I missing, Kyle?
Wasn't it the reason they had to go out and be pirates was because they were drugged or something like that? And so the whole adventure is to find the antidote, and then
that's right.
They have to do it to get the antidote from the guy who poisoned them.
Exactly. And then there was like this whole long deal about like in that adventure, several things get them offline, and then they got to come back, and they finally get back and get the antidote, and only one of them has the antidote. And Jean says to Locke, "You should take it," and Locke says, "I already put it in your drink, bro." Like,
you do a great Locke, by the way.
yeah.
Okay, so this brings up, that's the end of the book, blah, blah, blah. Okay,
Spoiler.
Who cares? This brings up one of my first questions, and we'll get to the plot of the book in just a second. Will we get to the plot of the book? But I want to ask you guys about the magic. We briefly talked about this in our last Gentleman Bastards episode, but the magic system in this is interesting. It's light. This is a fantasy story that is light on the magic.
I was like, what do you mean it was light? No, it wasn't. But light is in not a major carrying piece.
It doesn't seem to be a major factor, but it seems so. This is like we talk about what do we talk like hard magic versus soft magic? Is that the term?
Sure.
The systems.
I don't usually go to that part of the internet.
No, what's the term for a magic system that's rigid and Sandersonian?
I don't know. I can't.
We'll just go with that.
Yeah, hard magic.
What's the word I'm looking for?
Flaccid magic.
No, it's a magic.
Welcome to an hour of penis jokes. Pirates.
Pirates of penis ants.
What is this? A penis for ants?
Oh, Ryan just hit his head so hard. Oh man, I'm really glad. I'm so glad we have a week for me to edit this. Dude, did you hit that hard?
No,
Or is that from laughing?
That's right, from laughing.
You're like crying over there. Ryan's tearing up.
It doesn't help that we're recording this at 11 o'clock
is
at night,
11
and we're all
o'clock.
probably super tired, so you get that
Yeah.
laugh happy thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
that's great.
Sorry, everybody. What you just experienced may have been 5 seconds, but I edited. I can't even say it. I edited that down from quite a bit more. Oh my goodness. Where were we? I have no idea what we were even talking about.
You were talking about the magic system in the book, how it's very light. It's not one of the core elements of the book.
I'm talking. I want to get into the idea that some magic systems are soft magic systems and hard magic systems. Where like in Harry Potter, it's a soft magic system. It can do whatever the author needs at any moment. That's what we're dealing with here. And I was curious what you guys think of it, because it's a soft magic system, and it's not. He doesn't even try to define it. He just says like, "Oh, there's something called alchemy, and it can do whatever I need it to do at any given moment." I think it's boy, is it handy for an author to kind of keep a story going. Like, oh, I need them to have not just a carrot, but I need a stick. And so the stick is there's this poison. They've got to chase down the poison or the antidote, but the poison is slow acting, and it's got a 2-month timer on it. It's like, what? 2-month timer on a poison? Well, it's alchemical. So anyway, are you guys okay with this? Do you feel like this is a legitimate way to introduce magic into the story, or did it frustrate you at all?
I'm okay with soft magic systems in general. I did kind of roll my eyes at the whole, there's a 2-month countdown on this poison that they're taking. Like, oh, that's pretty convenient. We got a World of Warcraft style cooldown happening here. And I mean, I get it, but I'm okay. And I'm okay with it because the draw to this story isn't the magic system. I would say that there are some fantasy series out there it's very front and center. And like you read Mistborn, and you have to understand the way that the magic system works to be able to wrap your mind around some of the action sequences that Sanderson's explaining and describing. And he weaves it in there. And that's not the draw in this story. The draw is the relationship between John and Locke, those two characters, and whatever con they're trying to pull.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay that it's very much in the background and occasionally comes through, like, okay, to remind you, like, this is actually a fantasy book, not necessarily just a heist or mobster type of book.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I like how it works, but I did roll my eyes at a couple of things like that where it was like, oh, 2 months. Okay. Seems convenient.
I hesitate to call this a magic system a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there is this magic system in this world. We dealt with it in the first book a little bit with the
Magi, the Bonds Magi.
Yeah, the Bonds Magi. So there is a magic system that exists. This is more of the only reason why I'm okay with that a little bit is because it is potions-esque. To me, it feels a little more scientific, even though it's not.
Right. You have to study and understand it. And
yeah. And the thing was, that 2-month timeline wasn't that's not a hard time. That was him saying, if you don't come back, we don't know when this is going to happen, but as long as you come back within 2 months, I can give you your next filler piece.
Yeah.
So it was, to me, it was never quite that hard of a timeline. So I was totally okay with it because it's a slow acting poison. You don't know how it's going to react to different people's bodies and different things, but you know that it's slow enough that as long as you start at this much time, that it works. So for me, it wasn't a big issue. I just felt like the one thing that it did, I felt like he was just trying to establish additional stakes in this for heroes that we knew should make it. When in the last book we were like, oh, he killed off a bunch of the
core group.
Like, you could kill anybody here. So now he's like, I'm putting this over here. I'm like, yeah, well, I know neither of these two are going to die in this book for sure. Like,
yeah,
they're going to figure out a way to deal with this.
That being said, jumping all the way to the end of the book, and I mean the bitter end, I was really surprised with how he ended the book, with Jean having taken the antidote and Locke being like, well, I guess I'll die then. The end of book 2. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, wow, okay, we're going there. So that, I mean, it was a little nod in the direction of anything could happen. But I think, like you said, for the most part, the book was like, it was more along the lines of, how are they going to get out of this one? Instead of like, are they going to get out of this one? Right?
Mm-hmm. Checking the same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, the other thing was, if you're going to do that, I wanted to see... It never... I don't remember well enough to say, but I don't feel like it ever really became a major plot point in terms of actually affecting his ability to do stuff during the story.
Right.
Like, if he started to get sick during a section, and so they had to expedite, do whatever. Let it have an effect during the story, because it doesn't really until the end when they say, okay, we've got one antidote. He never got sick on the boat or anything.
To the point that at a certain point I forgot that they were poisoned.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh yeah, that's the whole reason that they're doing this. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
And oh, antidote.
So,
'Kay.
okay, so now we're getting into something that I did want to bring up when it comes to the plot of this one. There was... Okay, man, I really need to preface this. I need to preface it this way. I really enjoyed this book.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, but I still had fun with it. It was, it's still an amusing, fun time in, Locke world, whatever we call it. Lamora land. So it's great. Okay, now that out of the way. There was a thing in book one, and I think I might have briefly touched on it in that episode, where it felt very strange when he's conning the rich folks in book one, and then halfway through the book, it's just like, never mind, something else happens, and we abandon that storyline and we jump into something else. And book two, true to the idea of the sequel is always bigger and better, right? The sequel does that like 3 different times.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, it's going to be a casino job. And he's like, nope, never mind. Oh, okay, so now they're in the thrall of this military dictator, and they have to go learn how to be pirates. And so you spend a good chunk of the book training in this. It's not even a training montage. It's like full-on scenes where they're learning how to captain a ship. And then they get out onto the high seas, and then like 2 days later, it's like you're deposed and everything goes to shit. And then what is it? Now they're on the ship, and they're like, well, we still need to figure out a way to convince all the pirates to. Nope, never mind. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no,
he keeps bringing up these storylines and then not resolving them.
It actually felt almost like it was 2 books, because he also introduced 2 really cool antagonists for each of those storylines.
Yeah.
And which were both really cool in their own right. I think you got Requin,
yeah.
And then you've got Stragos. And those 2 villains on their own could have carried, I think, a whole story. But what it felt like to me is as soon as Locke and Jean go to train to become pirates or train to become seamen.
Right.
There you go.
Thanks, buddy.
We would have been fine until you did the double guns.
Double guns. What it felt like was that Lynch got really interested in writing a pirate book. And
which I'm fine with.
Like, it was super enjoyable, but like you said, it felt like he left all of the landlocked story completely behind and almost completely forgot about it. And we spent a lot of time at sea. We spent a lot of time training to go to sea. It was all very interesting, and he's really great at writing interesting characters, interesting dialogues, interesting scenes.
Yep.
But it felt disjointed.
So yeah, I think I see what you're saying. On a micro level, everything he's doing is fantastic.
Yeah.
But then you zoom out and you're like, wait, what is the structure of this book? What is this story that I'm reading? Because you can compare it to whatever story you like, but it keeps feeling like you're going to get a heist story, and then you get a save the world story.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's happened in book 1. It happened in book 2. And I haven't finished book 3 yet, but I can only assume. But anyway, I guess, Ryan, what are your thoughts on this? Are you with him all the way through? Is it kind of is it bothering you the way that it seems to be bothering us?
No. It's somewhat formulaic in the sense that it is. I know that anything that he's introducing at the beginning, he's going to aim to resolve at the end,
right?
Versus resolving part of the way through, like the casino heist. I know that at the end of this book, they're going to pull something off, or there will be some payoff to that. That's one thing I will say. I don't think he's never left a loose end big enough that I've felt that it caused a major problem. Yeah. He just doesn't tie them off until the very end of the book, which I think he could do. He could do a little bit better to do that through the story. 2
things that come to mind that get brought up and then abandoned was from book 1, the Nazca storyline, where it's like, oh, these 2, are they in love? Oh no, they're just, they have a healthy respect for each other. Oh my gosh, they're gonna have to figure out, what am I trying to say? What's that? Yeah, the courting. But they don't want to get married. So this is going to be an interesting little story. Oh, never mind. She's dead. And then in this one, it's the thing with the bonds magi when they're walking through the town, and the bonds magi kind of go and freak them out. Using the townspeople as puppets and whatnot. It's a great scene, and then you just never hear from them for the rest of the book. And so there are those little moments where it's like, no, I'm interested in that. I want to see that happen.
I think that speaks to what we were talking about earlier, that on a micro level, he's doing things so well that you're so engaged and you're so interested in all of these minor details that you want more and more and more. And when that, in a rare case, doesn't finish or doesn't happen, it's noticeable because you've attached to something very minute and very interesting, that it feels bigger than it probably is. But you're right. I do think that he actually ties everything off pretty well toward, like, at the end of the book. And I think it's part of his style because he weaves his stories in and out and things like that. But it felt, like I said, this one felt a little bit more disjointed to me than the first one. And the first one, I don't know if it was because it felt more anchored with, like, the Chains character. And this one, it was just a little bit different. I don't know. I really can't put my finger on it, but it just felt more disjointed, jumping from your landlocked story arc to your high seas story arc.
Back to the land. Yeah. Okay. Ryan, how did you feel about the flashback stuff, or the lack thereof, in this one versus the first one? I made a note as I was reading. It was 27% into the book. We get our first flashback with Father Chains. He's riding in a wagon, having a conversation with Father Chains. And I made a note. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I can't believe it took 27% of the book to get here. I love that character. I loved those scenes from the first book. And then, as far as I can recall, we get nothing else from that flashback stuff. We get other flashbacks with him and Jean in the aftermath of the Camor stuff, right? The book one stuff. So we get those brief flashbacks, but we don't get any more, like, childhood stuff, except for one tiny little conversation. Were you okay with that?
I was, because of where we were. A flashback to a childhood event, or those flashbacks are always used to inform how they're going to resolve or how they know about this. And the fact that we've established that these guys know nothing about sailing and being about being out on the sea, other than their general connection to Camor. I mean,
right? They know how to punt a boat, but they don't know how to sail a ship.
Exactly. To me, if we were constantly going back into a flashback, what purpose would it serve if you can't go back and showcase how they are going to affect this?
Yeah.
So to me, I was okay with it. I was also okay because I was more interested in the development of the current relationships going on, more so than realizing where they're coming from. Jean's relationship with what's her face?
Oh, I can't remember anymore. His lady love, the lieutenant.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll look it up. But to me, that storyline was more important than looking back at seeing where Jean had been in the past for now, because I was seeing Ezra. Yeah, because we were seeing how he was growing and developing and becoming something different than when we first saw him. This book had more of a Jean arc than anything else we've gone through so far.
And I find him to be a more interesting character than Locke. Do you? And maybe it is just due to those flashback scenes where we're getting more Jean in this book than we are of Locke, and thus making him, a more rounded and interesting character than Locke in this book, at least.
I'm not sure if I find him more interesting or not. I feel which of these two characters is more predictable?
Oh, both. Right. I mean, they both have really well-defined personalities, right?
Like, so for me, neither one of these characters really. I always feel like it's a little bit of a cop-out, but I always expect that they're going to do something that I haven't noticed so far. Like Locke, I always know is going to pull out something that's weird, whatever. And Jean is just going to be dependable Jean. And so for me to be more interested in him when I already know kind of what he's planning is, I don't know. I love him. I love the character.
Yeah.
I connect with him really well.
But you're looking for something a little more unexpected from these characters?
I want to see them. I want to see their growth and change. And Locke is more fun to be in his mind, but Jean is more relatable in his.
He's the Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah.
If Samwise Gamgee could, cave your head in with a hatchet.
If he had had the Wicked Sisters, that would have been a very different story.
Okay. Well, I think I can get on board with you there. I think I like him more than you do, but I understand what you're saying. I'm good with it. Can I go? Wait. Do we want to stay with the characters? I guess let's stay with the characters. Are there any other characters from this story that you want to see move forward besides these two? Because, I mean, we start with the two of them and we end with the two of them. And so it's like everybody else seems to be just a rotating cast to come in, give them an adventure, and leave. But is there anybody from this that you would like to see pop up again in book 3, book 4, whatever? Because I'll give you mine. It's the crazy half-burned Sinspire lieutenant. She's what's her name? I can't remember. But I think she's fantastic. I think she's got just a cool visual. She's got the whole Harvey Two-Face thing going on. Anyway, I like her. I could see. I don't see her coming back, but I would like to see that. That would be nice.
I have, because of the way these are written, being more episodic, which is actually kind of relating to a point you brought up earlier about a loose end being brought up or something brought up and not. If this was being written in a less episodic style, like we had one large story arc, we'd be more forgiving of that because we'd figure going forward this will get resolved. We'll see this again in the future. And he does that a bit. I mean, having read book 3, like we do, you do get some more of that resolved, those things that come back. But because this is episodic, I've totally lost my point.
Something about Sherlock Holmes.
No. Gosh dang it.
I was just taking a stab there.
What were we talking about right before this?
I don't know, but I'm laying down an edit marker.
I hit my head.
You did. You hit your head pretty hard. I got to admit. Now there's my edit marker. Okay.
Characters that you would like to see.
Characters. Thank you.
Next book.
No, I don't want to see characters from this book move forward because unless their story arc melds into the larger picture, I don't want to see them move forward. I love Zamira Drakasha. I love the pirate, the captain of that ship. I love everything about her. I don't want to see her in the next one unless it's just to ferry them from point A to point B.
Sure.
Like she belongs with her ship in the sea. That's where if they're not there, I don't want to see them.
Yeah.
And knowing that they're the next episode should just have a new cast of characters other than Locke and John, and you can use anyone from their past that has already been brought over. Father Chains, the whole Gentleman Bastards gang. You can use them, but otherwise, no.
Okay. Well, that's who we might want to see come back. But I'll tell you, there's one person missing from this story again. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. What's her name?
What is her name?
Sabbatha. Sabbatha, yeah.
Sabbatha. I'm eager. And I'm a little bit not upset. I don't know, that's not quite the right word, but she keeps getting brought up. And Chekhov's gun is getting pretty cold up there on the mantle. This thing needs to fire. So in the first book, I was like, okay, well, I guess he'll bring it up in the next one. There just wasn't room for it here. And then this book was even longer than the first by a significant margin. And but by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Not even a tease at the end where it's like that's the final scene is like they show up and it's like, hi boys, I'm Sabbatha. And they're like, what happened to your voice? And she's like, don't worry about it. And then cut to book 3. Something, anything. but there was nothing. And I don't know. I guess I'm just at this point I'm just airing grievances. You've brought this up with other books in the past, Ryan, where it's like, you wouldn't have this many complaints if you didn't care. We brought up there. We had all these nitpicks for Watt for Wheel of Time as we were going through it, and you had to keep reminding me that, like, yeah, you nitpick because you care, and like that's true. Like I want to know. Locke seems to be really hung up on this girl, and I'm tired of not knowing about it. That's all. So sorry for airing my grievances. You guys don't even have to comment on that if you don't want to, and you don't want to.
Okay.
So
I just didn't know it was Festivus.
I just watched that episode. And for all of you overseas listeners who have never even seen an episode of Seinfeld, I don't know where Seinfeld plays, but I hope everybody's seen at least a little Seinfeld. Okay, I wanted to ask about something. Oh gosh, now I need to bring up my notes. Ryan, it's about false facing. There's a bit when Locke is considering his time as Leo Canto Costa. It doesn't really matter what the scene is, but he's deciding what kind of decisions he wants to make. And he says he reminded himself that he could do as he pleased and feel as he pleased while he was Leo Canto Costa. Leo Canto Costa wasn't real. And this reminds me of something that I think we've brought up before. I think it was episode, like way back, episode 38 or something. We played D&D for the first time. So Craig and Ryan playing Dungeons and Dragons for the first time. It's magnificent. If you haven't heard it, you should go listen. And then you'll know where I got the name of the character that we invented for our last weird episode that we did. Anyway, but we have talked a few times about this idea of creating a secondary character for yourself so that you can make different decisions and like experiment with different things. I just wanted you to sound off a little bit on that, because I think as somebody who's tied to the stage, you do a lot of theater, you've probably seen and experienced a lot of this. Hey, tell me a little bit about your false facing and what kind of, how this goes for somebody who spends a lot of time on the stage or maybe playing D&D or something like that.
So this is a really, really interesting discussion that you can spend a lot of time with on different aspects, because people approach it in different ways, especially in acting. Some people, it's relating themselves to their character and saying, this is how I would handle this situation and everything. And other people will create something totally, they will focus on building a character totally fresh. It's not them at all and trying to inhabit that piece. There's a lot of different techniques and approaches to doing that. The one thing you hope you can always manage is to balance that little check in your head that says, this is reality, this isn't. Because
right.
When that fades, you get Heath Ledger doing the Joker, which is an amazing performance, but then all of a sudden starts tormenting his nightmares.
Right.
And we have problems. So when he talks about false facing this and becoming another character and saying he can do whatever he wants because it's fake, I have a slight problem with that, because the consequences of what you're doing, your actions, are real. So yes, whatever you say or think or whatever as that character might be fake, but it's going to affect your actions. And you work on this all the time, building up the underlying reasoning for why you do something. Why am I here? What are my relationships? What am I trying to get? Why can't I get it? You answer all these questions so that in the moment when something comes in front of you, you know how to respond. I actually really, really like when Locke goes into other characters a lot in these stories.
Mm-hmm.
And preface, more of this will be discussed in the next book.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll hold a little bit for there, but I don't know. It's a very interesting subject, and it's more along the lines of, as a person, if you have this opportunity, which category are you going to fall into? Are you going to see how you fit into the character, or are you going to build something and fit yourself to it?
Right. It's an interesting exercise both for Scott Lynch and also for us trying to read the story, to keep track of Locke Lamora, who is our main character, who is playing Leo Canto Costa, who is playing whatever the fake captain's name was. Yeah, I can't even remember anymore. But
Inception.
yeah, exactly. So, but it's interesting, and at times it was a little bit frustrating trying to keep track of which one is Jean in this scene, and they'll throw out names, and you have to try to follow the trail back to who it is you're actually talking about. So yeah, I mean, it's a little frustrating at times, but I think it's a really interesting thing to do. I guess my question is, do you feel like you're getting enough of a discussion on the possible ramifications, the psychological ramifications of doing this? Or are we just being presented with a story where these characters are so practiced at false facing that they have no problem separating themselves from their fake characters, and that's all there is to it?
At this point, it's the latter, where we know that they've had a past, that this is something they've been doing for a long time. We just assume that they can handle it.
Yeah.
But getting a better view into how they came to those skill sets will be a nice piece.
The special set of skills,
Mm-hmm.
one might say. Okay, well, boy, I just realized I forgot to ask for Reddit questions. So my bad, Reddit people. I really apologize. But what do you guys want to talk about? Anything you want to bring up with this book as I chase down my other notes?
Yeah, I've got one or two things.
Sure.
One of the things I actually really liked, we talked about the like more than a montage of learning how to be a captain
Sure.
of the ship or whatever.
Yep.
One of the things I like that Scott Lynch did here is that his heroes or his protagonists didn't get it right. So they went through all this training. They figured out how to pretend to be captains, and then what's his name dies, Caldress.
Right.
And then the storm comes, and a bunch of crew members die, and then they mutiny, and that's how they get imprisoned and all that stuff. So like, it wasn't the classic fantasy. This person's going to go through and learn how to do this thing, and they're going to master it at least to the level where they can accomplish X task. It's like, no, they totally screwed it up. And then this crew mutinied and put them in prison or marooned them or whatever. So I liked that he did that. It was very refreshing to see that change.
It's kind of the other side of the coin from what I was talking about. Yeah, it's frustrating that he abandons the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
you get a cool, you're getting the rug pulled out from under you, and it can be a pleasurable thing as a reader, right?
And in the same vein, this is my other point, in the same vein, this book started out kind of slow, and you had your characters mourning the losses of the previous crew. And I actually really liked that there was this kind of weird emotional view.
Kind of a catharsis.
Yeah, into how Locke was handling it, and he would get drunk and all that kind of stuff. And it was a slow mover, and the book started out slow, but I think that it really helped to build that rapport, like with that character, and connect to him a little bit more. And you don't normally see that in literature, or in at least fantasy literature. Usually it's trying to get on to the next adventure or whatever. And I like that he took the time to do that. So those were two things that I thought were different and refreshing.
Okay. Yeah. Like Sierra Mist.
No.
Okay.
He got on my nerves at the beginning for the
Jean did, or Locke did.
Locke.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because it's a very real response, though, and that I appreciated that. But at the same time, I'm like, don't you Harry Potter 5 me? Don't you Harry Potter 5 me here? Get back up and get going.
Yeah.
And I was sure they would. I was just, how long am I going to spend in the mire of self-pity?
Yeah, and it definitely made it slow. It was definitely hard to get into, but like looking back on it, I was like, oh, okay, I appreciate that this is very real.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. All right. All right, so I've got one for you here. The Parlor Passage. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about? Just another one of those things. Harking back to our micro scene that's amazing, and boy, do I wish this had been worked more into a macro, at a macro level. The Parlor Passage is the kind of misty ghost passage that they take to get to the pirate island.
Oh, yeah.
And he does a neat little trick where we get relatively few Jean point of view chapters, but this is one of them, because what they do is they whisper your real name at you.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're whispering your name, and he switches to Jean so that he can show that without telling us what Locke's real name is. Dirty trick on that one. But anyway, but I really liked it, and I was waiting for them to like send their, or like, you know, to pull the other pirates who were chasing him down, like have them chase him to the Parlor Passage or something, and then the other ship gets ruined by the ghosts, and they get Aragorned by the Army of the Dead or something like that. Anyway, I enjoyed that scene quite a bit. It was spooky. It was very, very well drawn, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I like, one of the things I really like about this, and I had never really thought about it until I went through this. I really like pirate stories. I didn't know I liked pirate stories because they're usually side pieces. Like, with the exception of, you know, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies and like one Assassin's Creed game or something like that. Pirates are not a portion that we spend a ton of.
They're not quite the cultural force that they were maybe a few generations ago.
Yeah.
When everybody was reading Treasure Island and that
I was
sort of
gonna
thing.
say I love Treasure Island, so.
Yeah, and the thing is, I cannot think of a pirate story that I didn't enjoy watching or reading or anything like that. That's so I actually
know somebody's gonna get on Reddit now and be like, "What about this one?" And you'll be like, "Oh yeah, that sucked."
Be like, I'd probably be like, I didn't see that. But I was very appreciative of the fact that there was time. I know the montage, in air quotes, took a long time, but it gave me enough of a vocabulary so that I didn't feel like the pirates were dumbing stuff down as we spent time with them and seeing their adventure. What are the real threats to them? What are the things like I got involved in the pirate portion of this story quite a bit and loved it. And I don't think fantasy literature gets enough pirates.
All right. We get I'm recalling the movie version. I can't remember how the book version of it went, but the movie version of Stardust, where Robert De Niro plays a gay pirate. It's fantastic. I absolutely love that.
I've told you my pirate dating app idea, right?
I think you have.
Yeah, hookup. And the slogan is just going to be like, "You're here for the booty."
I hate you so much.
If that shows up in the App Store, you'll know you shouldn't have said it here.
I know.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, so any other pirate stuff we want to talk about at the moment? I've got something else that I want to move on to.
I have one quote from when they started out taking over as captains that really stood out to me. Basically, they had to make their decisions, figure things out. And he says, "So this is what command is: staring consequences in the eye and pretending not to flinch." And we've had the same discussion before with other pieces about the requirements of leadership and doing things like how often it's just faking it, like, or just realizing that you are going to answer for the consequences of what happens, but you're the one who has to make the choice. Just owning that.
I'm reminded of, speaking of movies at sea or stories at sea, do you remember U-571? Matthew McConaughey and Harvey Keitel? There's a... Okay, I understand. You don't at me, bro. I understand the movie does serious violence to the history of World War II and all that. Whatever. Still a fun movie. And there's that great scene in the latter half of the movie when Harvey Keitel has to pull aside Matthew McConaughey and berate him because somebody had asked him a question and he said, "I don't know. Like, what are we going to do, Captain? I don't know." And he pulls him aside and he says, You know. You always know. You know everything. You're now the captain. At no point can you ever let on that you don't know. That's always kind of stuck with me. I love that scene, and it's kind of a similar thing, I think, to what you're talking about. Even if you don't understand everything, you have to portray, a sense of, like you say, leadership.
Yeah, especially in moments of crisis, people are looking for a foundation somewhere that they can trust, and the handful of people who can hold themselves together enough to think through and make a decision in those moments usually end up being the ones in charge.
Right. Yeah, like Kyle.
Huh?
Yeah. You're the highest ranking corporate member here, by the way, because you have manager in your title.
I'm out of here.
You're too good for us. Okay, well, before we move on to weightier stuff, I want to bring up the swears.
Hell yeah.
So this is something that everybody kind of, got me all jazzed for, and we talked about it in the first one, and we brought up some of our favorite swears. I think actually your favorite swear in the book one episode was from this one.
Yep.
Rope.
Rope, yeah, that's right. So I'm just going to start hitting my edit markers now. I marked a bunch. Do you guys have any? Or should I just start laying them out there?
Just cuss like the sailor.
Okay, drawing cards. The two of chalices, worth precisely one wet shit from a sick dog in this situation. Let's see. Surely you boys can do simple sums, he said. 1 + 1 = don't fuck with me. That's a great one. Let's see. I know I've got more. I'm going to take his whole bloody palace and shove it so far up his ass he'll have stone towers for tonsils. Okay. And where's my... Oh, I've got some more. Oh, most of these I'm like, oh, that's just colorful. And then there were a couple instances where I'm like, ooh, that's rough language there. Here's one. How the screaming fucking hell do you expect the two of us to raise a bloody pirate armada in a place we've never been and convince it to come merrily die at the hands of the Navy that bent it over the table and fucked it in the last time?
Wow.
Like, holy jeez, dude. That's some rough language.
Yeah. Which is, he uses those moments when Locke gets irate.
Right.
Like, he cusses a lot, and most of the time it's colorful, but when he is actually irate and loses a little bit of control, that's when those gems of just pure coarse language just hit hard.
Yep, absolutely.
So I do have one.
Okay, I have my favorite, but I want to
Okay.
hear yours first.
Okay. This was right before Jean comes to the rescue.
Okay.
And says, "Come then, face Ravel. The gods have sent your doom, motherfuckers." And then Jean shows up and saves him.
Okay, okay, I have two more. Jean uses the phrase, "Oh, sweet jumping f-." I think that's a great one. And then also, "Do that and we're all gonna die, fast as a 1 copper fuck in a 1 whore cat house." I hope that's clear.
Nope.
Anyway, okay, so I've got a lot of editing ahead of me, but it's worth it. I think I found the swearing more enjoyable in this book than in the last one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's better or if I just found it more enjoyable, but I think Ryan just found his favorite.
Not one of my, not a favorite, but it's a good one, and it's not even a curse. He says, "Any man can fart in a closed room and say that he commands the wind."
That is a good one. I like that. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, sorry, I need to speak into my microphone. I wanted to bring up religion.
Right after the cussing.
Exactly. What, you think I wasn't timing this?
It was beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, I want to talk about religion. It's really, really interesting to me. I know I brought this up in our last episode, but it's just getting more so as we go through the story. There is basically the reason that everybody mutinies on the ship after the storm is now we've got some dead sailors, and Locke, as the captain of the ship, is expected to pray over the bodies of the dead in the name of, I can't remember what the sea gods. What is the name of the sea god? It doesn't matter. He won't do it because he's not a priest of that order, as a real ship captain would be. And so what he does in front of one or more members of the crew is he prays over them in the name of the crooked warden, or I guess not in the name of whatever. Doesn't matter.
13th.
Yeah, as a priest of the nameless 13th, and everybody's like freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is not kosher. This is not okay. And I loved that scene, and it's again getting back to how interesting I find it that Locke and Jean and everybody else, they are truly devoted to a god that we would consider problematic, probably. But there is real devotion. There's something to be admired there, right? Are you paying attention at all to this? Is the religious aspect of this book firing anything in your brain and your imagination? Is it kind of floating over you?
I've been appreciative of the balance between religion and superstition in this book, because yes, that becomes a big element, and the fact that of all the moral lines, the moral compass points that Locke has, this is one of them when it comes to the worship of and these rites. But it's funny because the other things that cause them to mutiny are the fact that the pirates' superstitions aren't being met.
They don't have any cats.
There's no woman on board. There's no cats on board. On top of that, so you start with that, and these men are already bloodthirsty, and then on top of that, you take away their rites of burial for this, and yeah, they're gonna mutiny. But I think it's interesting that it's not until they cross that religious line that they finally act on it.
Yeah,
like, you didn't bring cats, we should throw you overboard. We didn't this, we should do this. But the moment that it becomes these souls are in peril, every single one, all the pirates, they take it seriously.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. Kyle, how do you feel about the Nameless 13th and the fact that they are so devoted to him? It's from a Western civilization, kind of Christian, Judeo-Christian perspective. This Nameless 13th sounds like Satan, basically, in a way. I mean, this is the person who stands for everything that you're not supposed to stand for, right?
Yeah.
Thieves and whores and whatnot. But I think, because we're in a story where this is not a Western Christian story, this is a polytheistic culture where, I think we're safe from that. But how do you feel about it when they kind of whip out that devotion to the Nameless 13th?
Curious. I want to know more about it. It's the religion factor in here in this book series so far feels very similar to the magic system, where it's not as like it's actually a little bit more front and center than the magic, I think. But I want to know more about it.
Yeah, that's one reason I miss the flashback scenes so much. Right?
Yeah, because I think you get a little bit more of a peek into what the beliefs even are, what's their core driving factor. Because like you said, Jean and Locke, this is the one thing that drives their morality, whatever that is. This is it, and I want to know more about it. I feel like I wouldn't necessarily equate it to like Satan, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Because it is very different. It's very I don't know how to put my finger on it.
In comparison to our Judeo-Christian culture,
Right.
These are more like the patron saints than they are, but in their situation, it's who's standing at the judgment bar basically and helping them out,
right?
In their case, so, and I love the Crooked Warden, the way they describe how he helps them, because it's not. Yes, he hides them with the darkness. He does those things, but for him, he puts his finger on the scale of justice at the end when they're being judged, and just tips the scale just a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. See, and I look at it more of like a Greek or Roman mythology type of situation where there's these different deities, and you can choose to offer up sacrifice to one or the other for their blessing or whatever. So like, that's kind of how I've wrapped my mind around it a little bit.
It makes sense.
But yeah, I think my main reaction to it is just curiosity. Like, I'd love to know more about it. I'd love to see flashbacks of Locke going through the priesthood of whatever this is, and becoming a full-fledged priest of the nameless 13th. Like, it'd be kind of cool.
Well, maybe we'll get some more of that in book 3, I guess.
I'm also interested in how this religious idea fits in with the actual magic system.
What do you mean?
So, like, and maybe I'm just forgetting or missed it, but like, you have your bonds, magi, and the whole idea of like true names and things like that. And does that fall under a certain deity, or is it separate from it? And how does it interact with that?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
How does it plug in?
I think this is kind of interesting. The equivalent patron saint, sort of, and I know I can't remember. We have at least one fathered listener, clergy listenership who's going to come back on me hard for this. But
yeah, let's say our catechism is weak.
Yes.
Sorry.
But the closest thing we have to the nameless 13th would be Santa Claus.
Really?
Saint Nicholas was the patron saint of repentant sinners and pawnbrokers, and these people here.
Oh. So you got to repent first.
He got a whole, apparently he's got a ton of things. Sailors, merchants, archers, repentant thieves.
Archers?
Yeah.
Archers.
Santa's rocking a bow.
Holy crap, was I born in the wrong century?
Yeah. Repentant thieves, children, brewers, pawnbrokers, and students.
Like I said, my catechism, not strong. But what I'm wondering is he still the patron saint of all these things? Like, can I still...
It's used in the present tense. Saint Nicholas is the patron saint of sailors, merchants, archers.
Sweet Moses. This is amazing. All right. I'll be right back. I'm converting to Catholicism. This is awesome.
So that you can shoot a bow and arrow and worship Santa Claus?
Yes. Well, they don't. I don't think they worship the...
Pray to Santa Claus?
Yeah. Anyway, this is amazing. I am in. This is awesome. Where were we, Kyle? You were saying something less interesting.
Very much less interesting. All I said was I just want to see how the religious factor and the magic system
how they interplay. Yeah. I'm with you. Like I said, maybe we'll get some more of that in book 3. I have started book 3, but I have not finished it, so I guess I've got a lot ahead of me to see what goes on in that one. And I guess that's what we'll look forward to, because I think we're pretty much out of time. Do you guys have any final thoughts you want to give on this one? Final impressions on book 2? Are you satisfied? Does it leave you wanting more, or would you quit if we weren't reading it for the podcast? Ryan, I actually know you've finished book 3. Mm-hmm. You finished these a while ago, and I have to assume that it must have been interesting if it had you continuing at that pace.
Yes, actually, and I have progressively enjoyed each book more and more as I've gone along. And I blame...
So you liked book 2 more than book 1?
And I will tell you, yes, but because of an accident. I was reading through some things, and I saw a bunch of reviews that people were complaining about how it was for book 3. They were saying, "Oh, we're finally getting back to what we want from Locke and John, and we're getting back to this, or so much better than book 2 and everything." So I went into book 2 going, okay, this is going to be a sophomore slump. This is going to be whatever. And I really enjoyed the book. I came out of it going, wow, because I had read all these.
Yeah, your expectations had been lowered too far.
So I think it's a false sense of equivalency between the first and second book.
Sure.
But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, and I jumped right into book 3. So.
Okay. Kyle, what about you?
I didn't enjoy it as much as book 1, but that's not to say that I didn't enjoy it. Like I think we covered kind of my criticisms of it already, which were just it felt a little disjointed.
Sure.
But it was super enjoyable, and so I feel like I'm excited to jump into book 3, namely because of the cliffhanger of like, oh, Locke doesn't have an antidote, so what's gonna happen? It feels very Jon Snow. Lying on a table, like cut scene. Now I gotta wait a year for the next season to come out. Right. That's what it felt like, and it's working to get me to want to read the next one.
Sure. Okay.
I'm curious if it hadn't ended that way though, if they had both taken the antidote, if I would feel the same way. I don't know that I would. So like if that doesn't leave me with the cliffhanger, let's say they both get the antidote and it's like, okay, they're fine and they're sailing off to next adventure.
Right. You might not join them on that adventure.
Yeah, I probably would want to finish it because I like to,
see it through.
But I wouldn't be chomping at the bit.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think I'm probably in between the two of you. I might be leaning more towards Kyle's. But Ryan, you said something to me. I can't remember if it was on the air or off after the first book when you said something about, if you like political intrigue, just wait until book 3. Mm-hmm. It's going to be right up your alley. And that's great. And it does make me look forward to book 3. But I will say that with the whole kind of what I've been talking about at the early part of this episode, where the first book abandons a storyline really abruptly. And I mean, like you mentioned, it gets brought back in the end to kind of help wrap up the B storyline, but at the same time, it does feel abandoned in the middle of it. And I felt like book 2 did that a few times for me. It kind of makes me worry. It's like, okay, well, book 3 might have some cool political stuff, but ultimately, is it going to matter? Am I just going to invest myself in something that I have to say goodbye to halfway through the book and then never think about again? So I like that. It's not, I will not call it a weakness of the book. I'll call it a style that I have kind of struggled with a little bit. Makes me a little nervous for how much I will care about book 3 as I read through it. But that's my only concern. Ultimately, like we've been saying, and like a lot of people have said online, these stories are about Jean and Locke and their adventures and their friendship. It's very much Sherlock and Watson from the new BBC version. Like it's about that friendship. And so, yeah, it's almost like, I don't really care what your next adventure is as long as you two go on it and have some quippy banter, throw in some F words. I'm in,
Yeah.
That's about where I feel.
What do you hope to get out of book 3?
I want to see
Other
Sabbatha.
than quippy banter.
I want to see Sabbatha. I want some resolution to the Bonds Magi thing. That's about it. But I don't want the Bonds Magi to show up again. That's not what I'm looking for. I am looking for resolution. Like all these teases for those two elements. I'm getting a little tired of them. I want more, and I want resolution.
So what do you think when you know that the series is supposed to be 7 books?
Yeah, that's I kind of just feel like I was just saying about Sherlock and Watson. Like that's about all you can do, right? You can't. There isn't anywhere except for maybe the Bonds Magi. There's nowhere to go for like the big grand overarching good versus evil, David versus Goliath, whatever, that storyline.
That was my thought, because you just said Bonds Magi and you want a resolution, and I'm thinking,
You got 4 more books and they're the strongest villain in quotes.
Right. Anyway, all right, we'd better cut and run though. Thanks you guys, and thank you everybody for listening. Hit up patreon.com/legendarium. Go to thelegendarium.reddit.com and let us know what you think of our inane thoughts on book 2 of the Gentleman Bastard series.
I look forward to did you even read it?
Also, I forgot to mention up top, go to YouTube, subscribe to the Legendarium podcast on YouTube, and we'll see you all next time. I think the next episode is going to be Blue Team doing, what are they doing?
I don't know.
Whatever. They're doing whatever they do. Go look at it's on Reddit. The schedule's up there. Just go look. Who cares? Who cares what they're doing? It's Blue Team. All right.
Civil War.
Bye, guys.